The Jordan River is of symbolic and spiritual significance to many since the Bible says,
Water had not touched the lowest bends of the Jordan River Valley for weeks, and by the time the final trickle vanished beneath the scorching light, the exposed riverbed looked strangely deliberate, as if the land itself had been waiting for this moment. Dry fissures radiated outward like ancient script, and a chalky smell drifted from the cracked mud. People gathered along the banks in stunned silence, uncertain whether to feel awe or dread. The Jordan had receded before, narrowed before, grown sluggish in drought years, and shifted course under political pressure and upstream diversion. But it had never fully vanished in human memory. This time, the last wet shimmer collapsed into dust, leaving behind something no one expected. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The newly revealed stretch was not merely a dry channel. Embedded along the deepest corridor were dark, geometric stones, arranged with a precision that contradicted the surrounding chaos of broken reeds and hardened clay. What emerged was not a single artifact, but a continuous line of carved blocks extending for almost 2 kilometers, each etched with angular patterns that resembled water ripples frozen in stone. For decades, scholars had speculated about structures buried beneath the Jordan's silt. Fragments of older settlements, remnants of ancient irrigation systems, or foundations of forgotten shrines. But none of those theories fit the scale or artistry of what was now visible. It appeared too intentional, too cohesive, too monumental to be just remnants of utilitarian construction. Even from a distance, the stones seemed to hum with an odd stillness, as though waiting for someone to decipher their story. At first, local residents approached with caution, stepping around the cracks and ridges, wary of sudden sinkholes or collapsing mud. But the structure remained solid, untouched by the decay that afflicted everything else. Children traced their hands over the carvings, and adults scanned for familiar symbols from known cultures in the region. None found an exact match. Archaeologists were called almost immediately, their teams rushing from universities and research centers across the Middle East, expecting to see something related to long-lost canals or fortifications. Instead, they found themselves staring at an architectural puzzle that seemed to predate the earliest known settlements along the river. As more of the riverbed baked under the heat, additional shapes emerged. An oval chamber partially filled with fine sediment, a series of raised platforms, and a narrow corridor that plunged deeper into the ground. The farther the researchers descended, the colder the air became, as if a pocket of ancient atmosphere had been sealed away for thousands of years. Faint echoes rolled back from the interior when someone spoke, giving the chamber an uncanny sense of depth. Preliminary measurements suggested the structure extended far below the lowest levels ever reached by river sediment cores. That alone defied existing geological timelines. The region had been shaped by shifting tectonic plates, floods, and drought cycles, each depositing layers of material that acted like the pages of a long historical record. Yet here was a structure untouched by those natural sequences, preserved as though the river had been intentionally protecting it. Speculation soared. Some believed it to be ceremonial, perhaps a temple used by a culture that vanished before written history. Others insisted it was a form of early hydraulic engineering, though no such engineering matched its artistic complexity. The corridor walls were smooth and symmetrical, with patterns flowing from one chamber to another as if the entire structure represented a unified theme. That consistency hinted at an overarching intention, a purpose larger than mere shelter or storage. Every new discovery intensified the debate. The stones were harder than limestone, but lighter than basalt, a composition not found in current regional quarries. No tool marks were visible. The blocks looked molded rather than carved, yet no evidence of ancient casting technology existed for this area or era. The deeper the teams dug, the wider the gulf grew between known history and what lay before them. The implications rippled outward faster than officials could contain them. The Jordan River is more than a geographic boundary or natural resource. It has anchored cultural memory for millennia. It threads through religious traditions, historical narratives, and national identities. Its disappearance alone would reshape regional dynamics. But the emergence of the subterranean structure shifted the conversation from environmental crisis to historical upheaval. It forced a reconsideration of how civilizations in this basin evolved and interacted. If the structure predated the earliest river-linked communities, then the timeline of human presence in the Jordan Valley might need rewriting. The story of development, migration, belief, and conflict could look entirely different through the lens of a culture advanced enough to construct such a monument. International teams arrived with equipment capable of scanning subsurface layers. Ground-penetrating radar revealed additional voids branching from the main chamber, some extending horizontally beneath what used to be the river's eastern bank. Others angled downward like spokes of a wheel. The readings were inconsistent, as if some internal partitions were built from a material that distorted electromagnetic waves. That distortion intrigued engineers and physicists as much as historians. It hinted at unknown techniques or materials, possibly designed to repel water or resist erosion. If the structure had been built intentionally along the future path of the river, then the builders might have possessed knowledge of hydrology and geology far beyond what was assumed possible for prehistoric settlers. Teams cataloged every carved angle, every unusual surface, every temperature shift in the interior corridors. The carvings exhibited a coherence suggestive of a language or symbolic system. Patterns repeated in intervals that seemed deliberate. Curved lines intersected at consistent ratios, and certain motifs appeared only near thresholds between chambers. The overall design conveyed an almost musical rhythm, as if the structure embodied a silent composition. Linguists attempted to correlate the motifs with known proto-scripts from the region, but found no alignment. The symbols did not resemble early Semitic alphabets, Canaanite pictographs, or any proto-writing associated with trade routes or early settlements. The more comparisons they made, the more the structure seemed to belong to a civilization that left no trace elsewhere. Meanwhile, the absence of water in the Jordan River sparked new concerns. Farmers downstream feared crop losses, and communities dependent on the river for drinking water awaited emergency provisions. Yet, even as environmental officials struggled to address immediate needs, spectators continued to pour into the valley. The site became a magnet for curiosity, drawing people from every direction. Some came with reverence, believing the emergence signaled a profound turning point. Others arrived with anxiety, afraid the discovery would heighten regional tensions or invite competing claims. Still others simply wanted to witness a moment they knew their descendants would ask about for generations. As more of the structure was uncovered, it became clear that its size exceeded initial estimates. What appeared to be the main corridor branched into a network of interconnected passages, each leading to a chamber with distinct architectural features. One chamber contained a circular basin carved into the floor, its stone smoother than glass and warm to the touch despite the cool air around it. Another chamber showcased protruding columns that narrowed toward the top, defying typical structural logic. Their surfaces gleamed faintly under even minimal light, as though polished with a substance that resisted decay. In every room, the artistic patterns varied, yet harmonized with the overall design. It felt as though each space served a different role in a system whose function had been forgotten. The deeper explorers ventured, the more unnerving the structure became. In one chamber, a perfectly vertical shaft extended upward toward the surface, yet no opening existed above ground. That meant the shaft was constructed before the layers of sediment accumulated around it. How ancient then was the structure? Geological dating of materials nearby suggested extreme antiquity, older than established civilizations in the region. But the structure's preservation, complexity, and apparent intentional placement contradicted everything known about early human development here. Such a paradox demanded answers, but each answer led to further mysteries. Along the riverbed, additional anomalies appeared. Certain stones emitted a faint metallic resonance when struck gently with surveying tools. Some surfaces remained unnaturally cool under direct sunlight. Researchers documented these peculiarities meticulously, but none could determine their purpose. Theories emerged suggesting the builders possessed knowledge of mineral composition, temperature control, and acoustics far ahead of their time. If true, then the culture responsible for the structure might have achieved a technological sophistication unmatched by any contemporaneous group. Historical scholars began re-evaluating regional myths and early oral traditions. Many stories hinted at lost communities or vanished sanctuaries beneath the waters of the Jordan. But these were often metaphorical narratives, symbolic rather than literal. Still, a few descriptions mentioned rivers protecting sacred places or concealing remnants of older worlds. Whether deliberate or coincidental, the parallels were uncanny. The discovery made people reconsider whether such tales contained kernels of forgotten truth. As researchers expanded their exploration, they noticed that the deeper they traveled into the structure, the more intentional the spatial orientation became. Chambers aligned with astronomical points, solstice angles, equinox lines, and positions of constellations significant in ancient skywatching traditions. This alignment implied a culture deeply attuned to celestial cycles. Combined with the structure's placement beneath a once thriving river, it hinted at a civilization that integrated earth and sky into its worldview, perhaps seeing water as a veil over sacred knowledge. The implications extended beyond archaeology. The sudden exposure of the riverbed ignited debates about climate patterns, resource management, and the long-term sustainability of water systems throughout the region. Environmental scientists argued that while drought cycles were not new, the complete disappearance of the Jordan River represented an extreme event necessitating urgent research. They emphasized upstream diversions, population pressures, and climate trends as contributors. Yet even these explanations felt overshadowed by the magnitude of what the river's retreat had revealed. Political leaders found themselves navigating unprecedented challenges. Borders, resource agreements, and cultural claims intersected with a discovery that did not belong to any single nation. The structure lay along a river sacred to multiple faiths and shared by multiple peoples. Its emergence threaded together histories that had long diverged. In many meetings, leaders expressed concern that the find might become a point of contention, competing narratives forming around who descended from the builders, who had rightful stewardship, and who could claim cultural continuity. Others saw an opportunity for cooperation, believing the structure could become a shared heritage site. Whether unity or division would prevail remained uncertain, but the gravity of the discovery compelled all sides to acknowledge its significance. As weeks passed, teams reached the lowest accessible level of the exposed chambers. Here, the stones shifted from geometric patterns to sweeping, organic motifs resembling waves, roots, and spirals. Unlike the crisp lines above, these carvings felt fluid, almost alive. Some researchers proposed that the shifting style signified different eras of construction, suggesting a culture that evolved artistically over time. Others argued the stylistic change represented a transition from outer to inner sanctums, each layer reflecting a different symbolic meaning. Whatever the reason, the transition deepened the sense that the structure encoded a narrative, one told through stone rather than script. One chamber in particular captured attention. At its center lay a raised platform shaped like a half-moon, its edge adorned with tiny indentations arranged in a precise sequence. The pattern resembled a calendar, though not one matching known systems. The indentations corresponded neither to lunar cycles nor solar months. Instead, they matched intervals associated with larger astronomical events, such as planetary conjunctions and long-period celestial motions. This revelation stirred excitement among archaeoastronomers, who speculated that the structure might have functioned as a cosmic observatory of unparalleled sophistication. If so, the builders must have possessed observational skills and knowledge of the heavens, far exceeding what had been attributed to early cultures in the region. The emergence of such a site beneath the Jordan River challenged nearly every assumption about early human capabilities. It suggested a society adept at architecture, astronomy, material science, and symbolic communication, yet one that seemingly left no trace elsewhere. The absence of pottery shards, tools, domestic ruins, or burial sites associated with the builders complicated the picture. Some theorize that the structure served a singular ceremonial or scientific purpose, built by a culture whose primary settlements lay elsewhere or whose way of life did not depend on typical material goods. Others believed the structure to be one of many, with others still hidden beneath earth or water in the region. The possibility electrified researchers, sparking plans for broader surveys and excavations. Yet the most intriguing question remained. Why had the river preserved the structure for so long? The Jordan's flow had shifted over millennia, eroding and depositing countless layers of sediment. Normally, anything buried beneath such a dynamic environment would degrade beyond recognition. But this structure stood intact, its edges crisp, its carvings unmarred by water movement or biological decay. This preservation suggested intentional design. Perhaps the builders engineered the structure to withstand water pressure. Perhaps they understood the river's future course and positioned their creation precisely where natural forces would protect rather than destroy it. The idea of such foresight captivated geologists and anthropologists alike. It hinted at an advanced understanding not only of materials and construction, but of long-term environmental behavior. As researchers prepared to descend even deeper, they encountered an obstacle. A narrow passage led downward at a steep angle, but the air within was unnervingly still. Sensors detected unusual magnetic fluctuations near the entrance, and mechanical equipment slowed inexplicably when lowered into the shaft. Attempts to illuminate the space revealed only a dim halo of light that seemed to dissipate prematurely. No one could explain the phenomenon, though some suspected the materials lining the passage possessed electromagnetic properties. If true, then the builders had engineered the shaft with capabilities modern science struggled to replicate. The mysterious passage fueled endless speculation. Some believed it led to the heart of the structure, a chamber containing the builder's greatest secret. Others feared it might contain natural hazards, pockets of dangerous gases, or unstable rock formations. Despite uncertainty, teams planned a careful approach, determined to map the passage inch by inch. But before they could proceed, the ground above shifted slightly, producing a low reverberation that rolled through the valley. It was not an earthquake, yet it was strong enough to raise concern. The structure, though stable thus far, might be more sensitive to external forces than expected. Outside, the riverbed continued to crack under the unrelenting heat. Entire sections crumbled into dust, revealing additional edges of buried chambers. Some surfaces bore faint discoloration, possibly stains from minerals or algae long dead. The site felt caught between worlds, one buried for millennia and one unfolding in real time. Every new exposure added urgency to the research, for wind and sun would soon damage what water had preserved. Protective measures were discussed, but implementing them proved difficult given the structure's size and the region's political complexities. Public fascination with the discovery grew exponentially. Writers, artists, and commentators poured interpretations into the world, each weaving the structure into their own worldview. Some saw it as evidence of a forgotten golden age. Others viewed it as a reminder that human civilizations rise and fall in cycles, leaving behind only whispers. A few argued that the structure's emergence at the moment the river dried carried symbolic weight, as if past and present were converging. Regardless of which interpretation people favored, the discovery rekindled interest in ancient history and deep-time thinking. Conversations expanded beyond the region to global audiences, prompting renewed reflection on humanity's roots and long-lost innovations. As days turned to weeks, the deepest known chamber revealed a feature that sparked equal measures of wonder and confusion: a smooth, concave wall that reflected sound with eerie clarity. Even a whisper rebounded with perfect fidelity. The acoustics surpassed those of modern performance halls, suggesting a deliberate design based on principles of resonance and vibration. If the builders understood acoustics to such a degree, then they might have used sound not merely for communication, but for ritual, experimentation, or even structural stability. Numerous research teams flocked to study the chamber, testing frequencies, mapping reverberation patterns, and comparing the layout to other ancient sites around the world that demonstrated acoustic expertise. The discovery of the acoustic chamber shifted theories toward the idea that the structure served multiple roles: astronomical, ceremonial, experimental, and symbolic. It may have been a nexus where different forms of knowledge intersected. If so, then the builders were not simply artisans, but thinkers who approached the world through interconnected lenses. This interdisciplinary view resonated with modern scholars who recognized echoes of contemporary scientific integration. It hinted at the possibility that ancient cultures, too, saw no boundaries between physical, spiritual, and intellectual pursuits. Though the river's disappearance created immediate concerns for local communities, the global significance of the structure overshadowed those worries in the minds of many. Yet the environmental implications remained profound. The Jordan River had survived countless shifts through recorded history, and its complete evaporation raised alarms about the future. Scientists warned that its absence would reshape ecosystems, groundwater levels, and local climate conditions. Even as the ancient past resurfaced, the present demanded urgent attention. The discovery highlighted the delicate balance between humanity and the natural world, how easily it could shift, and how intertwined it was with the stories of civilizations that came before. Even without final conclusions, the scale of the find transformed the region into the world's most discussed archaeological site. The structure beneath the river challenged established timelines, technological assumptions, and cultural narratives. It forced scholars to reconsider the origins of complex knowledge systems and reevaluate the depth of human ingenuity. The implications stretched beyond history into philosophy, politics, science, and identity. People found themselves asking not only who built the structure, but why, and what they understood about the world that modern societies might have forgotten. The river's disappearance had become more than an environmental event. It was a revelation that reshaped both past and present. As researchers continued their careful descent into the unknown, the structure seemed poised to yield further discoveries. Every chamber hinted at more waiting beyond, new patterns, new materials, new insights woven into the stone. The landscape of the Jordan Valley had been irrevocably altered, exposing evidence of a civilization whose influence had been submerged not just by water, but by time itself. Whether humanity was ready for the implications remained to be seen, but the emergence had already changed everything. The world now stood on the edge of a deeper understanding, one that would unfold chamber by chamber, carving by carving, in a story still being revealed beneath the dust of the vanished river. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Jordan River drying? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.